The first time my brother erased me, he didn't even raise his voice. He just smiled. We were sitting around his long dining table in Charleston, the one he bought after consolidating assets. Whatever that meant. The air smelled faintly like lemon polish and something burnt from the kitchen. Everyone was dressed like this was a celebration. It kind of was. Just not for me. Bo stood at the head of the table with a folder in his hand. Savannah was next to him, perfectly still, like she'd practiced that pose in a mirror. "So," Bo said, tapping the folder, "we've reviewed the Monroe Trust. The properties in Mount Pleasant are officially under my management. Permanently." A couple of cousins nodded. My aunt murmured, "Of course." He didn't look at me when he said it. That was the part that almost made me laugh. "There are 3 mixed-use properties," he continued, "all legally transferred years ago. Transferred, like furniture." Then he slid a single sheet of paper toward me. It stopped right in front of my glass of water. "Emergency structural assessment," he said, $21,750. "Since you're doing so well with that accounting firm of yours, we figured you could handle it," Savannah added, soft but sharp. "You've always been the practical one." "Adeline." That's when I finally spoke. "Did you review the original trust language I asked?" Bo blinked. Just once. The room shifted, subtle but real. You could feel it, like when the power flickers but doesn't go out. "My name is Adeline Monroe, 34 years old." Bo leaned back in his chair. "Don't start," he said. "I handled everything after Mom and Dad died. You were a kid." I stared at the invoice. The number looked stupid sitting there. Heavy. I remembered the first time he said, "I'll handle it." I was 17. It involved our mother's piano. I was 17 when Bo decided what parts of our parents were worth keeping. The movers came on a Thursday. I remember because I skipped track practice and walked into the house smelling like dust and old wood. "Where's Mom's piano?" I asked. Bo didn't look up from his phone. "Sold it." I laughed. I actually laughed. "What?" "We needed liquidity," he said. "It brought in $8,000. It was practical. It was hers. It was an object." He snapped. "You don't even play." "That's not the point." He finally stood up, taller, broader, acting older than 25. "I'm handling things now," he said. "You're a kid. You don't understand the estate." Estate. We didn't even know what that meant yet. "You didn't even ask me." I said, "I don't have to." That was the first time I felt it. Not grief. Not exactly. Displacement. He walked past me like I was in the way of something important. "I'll make sure you're taken care of," he added over his shoulder. That sentence followed me for years, back at the dining table now, staring at the invoice. I realized something ugly. He never meant taken care of. He meant managed. I didn't go home after that dinner. I drove to my office instead. The building was quiet, just the hum of the lights and that burnt coffee smell that never really leaves. 3 years ago, Bo called me past midnight. "Can you clean up the books?" he asked. "There are minor discrepancies." Minor, how I said. Don't start dissecting everything. Just fix it. I told myself it was normal. Families lean on the responsible one. I've always been that person. But when I opened the statements for the 3 Mount Pleasant properties, the numbers felt wrong. Rental income listed one amount. Deposits showed another. Not off by a little. Off by enough to notice. I almost ignored it. That's the part I'm not proud of. I told myself Bo was overwhelmed. That grief makes people sloppy. That I didn't need to question everything. When I brought the first batch of records to Reed Holloway, he didn't speak right away. "You want honesty?" he said, "always. This isn't a bookkeeping error. It's controlled movement. Controlled movement." That phrase stuck. Then I checked my own credit history. Frozen since I was 19. I called Bo. "Why is my credit locked?" I asked. "For your protection." He said, "You were young." You didn't understand financial risk. I was 19, not incompetent. You were fragile, he replied. That word again. Back at my desk, I found the amendment dated 3 months after I turned 18, my name signed neatly at the bottom. It looked like me. It didn't feel like me. And that's when I stopped telling myself it was just a mistake. I brought the amendment to read the next morning. I hadn't slept. The paper felt heavier than it should have. He read it slowly. Then he read it again. This was executed 3 months after you turned 18, he said. I was still figuring out laundry, I replied. I didn't even understand my own bank account yet. He tapped the signature line. And this is supposed to be yours. It looks close, I said, but it's not how I sign my name. He compared it to a copy of my tax return from that same year. The loops were wrong. The spacing was off. The amendment expands trustee authority, he said. Specifically, it allows discretionary redistribution of principal for family stabilization. That phrase is intentionally vague. How vague, I asked. Vague enough to justify moving $842,000. My stomach dropped. That was the insurance payout. Yes, your parents' policy. Deposited into an irrevocable trust. You were the sole beneficiary. Bo was trustee. I nodded. I already knew that part. Hearing it framed legally made it different. We traced the transfers. The 3 Mount Pleasant properties required down payments of $160,000, $210,000, and $185,000. Each amount corresponded to distributions from the trust within days. There's more, Reed said quietly. He pointed to a summary sheet. The remaining principal was gradually redirected into operating accounts tied to 2 limited liability companies Bo controlled. Rental income serviced personal debt. Reed added, vehicle leases, credit lines, lifestyle expenses. I sat very still. He told me he kept everything afloat. He may believe that, Reed said, but belief doesn't override fiduciary duty. We found another transfer, $65,000 categorized as educational advancement. It funded Savannah's boutique. Education, I repeated. That's what he called it. Reed folded his hands. If you didn't sign that amendment, it constitutes forgery. Combined with the diversions, this becomes breach of fiduciary duty and potential fraud. I drove home and opened the scanned copy of the original trust letter. My father's handwriting at the bottom was steady. For Adeline's independence, so she never has to depend on anyone. I realized something then. Bo didn't just redirect money. He rewrote intent. When I returned to Reed's office later that afternoon, I didn't ask whether we should file. I asked how. Bo didn't wait for me to move first. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before 8. The screen felt hot in my hand. A client texted, "Everything okay?" I opened social media. Bo had posted a photo of the 3 of us from years ago. Me slightly behind him. Of course. When family turns greedy over money, he wrote, you learn who values loyalty. Comments rolled in. Savannah replied under it. Some people forget who held things together. Held things together. I called Bo. What are you doing? I said, defending myself. He answered, calm. Too calm. You're threatening the family's stability. You forged my name. Don't be dramatic. $842,000 is not drama. Silence. Then, careful, he said. People don't respond well to ungrateful narratives. An hour later, Reed forwarded me something. He sent a letter to your largest corporate client, Reed said, questioning your professional judgment. My throat went dry. That's defamation. Reed added. Bo texted me again. You're overreacting. Don't ruin this for everyone. Ruin this. I stared at the message. The same word he used when he sold the piano. Tell me something when someone rewrites you publicly. Do you stay quiet or do you burn it down? I didn't argue online. I didn't post rebuttals. I went to Reed's office instead. He had the complaint drafted before I sat down. Breach of fiduciary duty, he said. Fraud. Conversion. Petition for constructive trust. File it, I said. He looked at me carefully. Once this is recorded, there's no quiet exit. There hasn't been a quiet exit since I was 17. He nodded. By noon. The civil complaint was filed in Charleston County Circuit Court. By 2, the Elias pendens was recorded against all 3 Mount Pleasant properties. 3 hours later, Bo called. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I filed," I said. "You froze the properties I protected what's mine." "You're destroying our leverage," he snapped. "The bank was finalizing a refinance. How much? $700,000. Of course. You were going to refinance assets purchased with my trust principal. I said, you benefited from that structure. No, I was erased from it. He lowered his voice. Withdraw it. We can settle this internally. You mean privately? Yes. No. There was breathing on the line. Heavy. You think this makes you powerful? He said. No, I answered. It makes it documented. After I hung up. Reed leaned back. He's exposed now, he said, financially and legally. I looked at the case number on the filing. Tell me, have you ever realized the only way to survive something is to make it official? Bo called another meeting. He said it was for clarity. I swear, that word follows men who are about to lie. I walked into his house again. Same long table. The air smelled like red wine and something overcooked. Savannah didn't smile this time. You didn't have to escalate it publicly, she said as I sat down. I didn't. I answered. The court did. Bo stood near the window, phone in his hand like it was armor. You blindsided me, he said. You forged my signature. It was an administrative amendment. $842,000 is not administrative. His jaw tightened. You're twisting it. I traced every withdrawal. I said, 160,000, 210,000, 185,000, directly into the down payments. Savannah looked at him. Is that true? It was reinvestment, he shot back. For the family, for you, I said. He stepped closer. You wouldn't have known what to do with it at 18. I laughed. Short, sharp. You didn't ask. He pointed at me. I kept us afloat. You kept me invisible. That landed? I saw it. Reed walked in behind me then. Calm. Folder in hand. Bo looked between us. You brought a lawyer to a family discussion. No, I said. I brought documentation. Have you ever noticed how confidence evaporates when paper hits the table? Reed placed the folder on the table without ceremony. He didn't need theatrics. The weight of it was enough. Bo leaned back in his chair. This is unnecessary. It's structured, Reed replied evenly. That's not the same thing. I opened the first section. Original trust funding. I said, $842,000 from our parents' life insurance. Sole beneficiary Adeline Monroe. Savannah's posture shifted. Slightly, almost imperceptibly. I turned the page. Trust amendment executed 3 months after I turned 18. Expanded trustee authority. My signature attached. Bo didn't wait. You signed it. I slid the enlarged copy across the table. My middle name is spelled wrong, I said. It always has been spelled wrong here. He didn't reach for it. Reed spoke. We compared this to contemporaneous tax filings and bank authorizations. The signature doesn't match. Bo exhaled sharply. This is forensic theatrics. I moved to the ledger summary. Down payments for the 3 Mount Pleasant properties. I said, 160,000, 210,000, $185,000. Each transfer traced to trust distributions within 48 hours. They were strategic reinvestments. Bo replied, for asset growth. With principal that wasn't yours. I said. He stood up then. I kept this family solvent. You were barely functioning after the funeral. I met his eyes. I was 20. You were fragile. He continued. You couldn't make decisions. Someone had to. And you decided it would be you. Reed opened the next tab. Rental income flowed into 2 limited liability companies solely controlled by Mr. Monroe. Beneficiary records exclude Mrs. Monroe. Savannah's voice was tight. You told me the capital was inherited fairly. Beau didn't answer her. He looked at me instead. You would have squandered it. I protected you. You protected control, I said. Reed folded his hands. If litigated, the court may remove you as trustee. There may also be personal liability and referral to prosecutorial authorities. Beau laughed once, without humor. You'd put your own brother in that position. I slid the final page toward him. My father's letter. The line underlined. For Adeline's independence. Beau read it slowly this time. You're rewriting everything, he said. No, I answered. I'm restoring it. The room went quiet in a different way. Not stunned, not loud, just aware. It didn't end with shouting. It thinned out. Quietly. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Beau's attorney contacted Reed. The tone was different this time. Measured. He's willing to discuss resolution. Reed told me. Resolution. As if we were smoothing out a scheduling conflict. We met in a neutral conference room. No family photographs, no polished dining table, just documents. Beau looked older, not broken, just diminished. I'll resign as trustee, he said. Immediate transfer of title for the 3 Mount Pleasant properties. Full accounting of diverted principal and rental income? With statutory interest, Reed clarified. Beau nodded. With statutory interest. He didn't argue the numbers. Savannah spoke before anyone else could move forward. You said it was balanced, she said. You said everything was structured correctly. Beau kept his eyes on the table. Reed continued. Public statements will be formally retracted. Written confirmation to affected parties. Yes, Beau replied. He signed the removal documents without ceremony. No apology. No explanation. When we stood, Savannah remained seated. Outside. Reed said quietly, You achieved your objective. I looked back at the building. This wasn't victory. It was correction. And correction doesn't restore what was taken. I didn't return to Beau's house. I didn't list the properties for sale either. A month later, I stood inside one of the Mount Pleasant units while contractors finished their work. The faint scent of fresh paint lingered in the air. It felt unfinished. Appropriate. Reed handed me the recorded transfer documents. Title is clear, he said. You're the sole owner. I folded the papers carefully. I'm restructuring the portfolio. Liquidating, he asked. No. Repurposing. I explained the plan for the Lillian Monroe Foundation. Oversight assistance for young beneficiaries whose guardians control trust assets. Education on fiduciary responsibility. Preventive audits. Reed studied me for a moment. That's not an obligation. It isn't, I said, but stewardship should mean something. Later that evening, I opened the scanned copy of my father's letter again. For Adeline's independence. Beau's last message still sat in my phone. You didn't have to do it this way. I considered replying. I didn't. There are things you can recover on paper. Title, principal, interest. Trust isn't one of them. If there's anything this taught me, it's simple. Understand what you sign and question what you don't. Family doesn't eliminate accountability. I still don't know what our relationship will become. Independence, I've learned, is quieter than victory.